You know what you get when an Earl has been granted the Order of the British Empire?
What do you get?
An earlobe.
Support for Trifles comes from listeners like you, who support us through Patreon and Substack. Bonus material, thank you gifts, and more await at patreon.com/trifles and at trifles.substack.com. And now you can enjoy some Trifles swag, mugs, notepads, and oval stickers, available in our store. Find it at ihearofsherlock.com/merchandise.
Welcome to Trifles, a weekly podcast about the Sherlock Holmes stories.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Yes, Boscombe Valley was mysterious, Shoscombe Place was old, and the lodge was hysterical, but there are so many other details to pick apart in the stories.
Pray, be precise as to details.
You know the plots, but what about the minutiae? Was Holmes more of a tea drinker or a coffee fancier? And what are all of the alcoholic drinks mentioned in the stories?
You are very inquisitive, Mr. Holmes.
It is my business to know what other people don't know.
Scott Monty and Bert Wolder will have the answers to these questions and more in Trifles.
The game's afoot.
Episode 474, Earls. Hello and welcome to Trifles, the podcast about the minutiae in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Bert Wolder.
And boy, Bert, you're up early today.
Yeah, the early bird catches the worm.
The worm.
The worm. It's important to be warm. No, it's important to be warm. In the winter. Yeah.
Please warm yourself up. Well, we have a healthy and nutritious and warming feast for the ears in this episode. As the title proclaims, we're going to be talking about Earls. I know, you're shocked. It is a view not only into which stories in the Sherlock Holmes canon contain Earls, but it's also an investigation as to what Earls are, or were, or started as. A bit of a dip into the history of British nobility. So stick with us for this fascinating and trifling investigation. Meanwhile, just a reminder that you can support the show in a number of ways, whatever appeals to you. You can buy our merch. We have merch available, mugs, notepads, oval stickers, available at the link in our show notes or at ihearofsherlock.com/merchandise. And you can also support us on Patreon or Substack for a monthly fee or even an annual fee with a discount. If that's what you prefer, you can have the warming knowledge that you support this fine program. It allows us to do our research, to buy prizes for our lucky listeners. And as a matter of fact, there will be one of those lucky listeners at the end of this episode. We will have a drawing, and all of our Patreon and Substack paid supporters, your names automatically go into this drawing, and we draw at random, and we send you a back issue of the Baker Street Journal, or perhaps another piece of Sherlockian memorabilia or scholarship from the Trifles vaults. So sign up and stay tuned at the end of the show for that drawing. Okay, we find ourselves among the peerage, Bert. Is this what they call peerage pressure?
Peering around, yeah. Well, they were, interestingly enough, this takes us right into the strange, to some listeners anyway, structure of the British monarchy, peerages in the United Kingdom. And it gets into the ranks. So, basically, we've got this structure here, which for the members of the royal family, you have dukes and duchesses. And then one step down from that is the marquess and the marchioness, man, woman. And then below that is earl and countess. And then below that, you have Viscount, Viscountess, Baron, Baroness, Lords and Ladies. So there you are. So you're sort of right there, a third from the top, let's say, Earl and Countess.
Smack dab in the middle.
And as you would expect, in the world of Sherlock Holmes, we frequently come in contact with members of the nobility. They're always doing things like losing children, either direct descendants or suspect descendants, or crowns and things and people. And who would they come to but Sherlock Holmes? And they're also occasionally writing out big checks. And who would they give that check to? Then Sherlock Holmes.
There you go. Well, it's clear these people don't have enough to do.
No.
But we thought, and that's a helpful kind of ranking of where they all sit with respect to each other. I find it interesting that the Earl is the only peerage that does not have a female counterpart that derives directly from its name. So, as you said, Duke, Duchess, Viscount, Viscountess, Baron, Baroness, but it's Earl and Countess. I would think it would be Earl and Early.
Earl and lately, yeah.
That's fascinating. But does that mean that when someone is referring to an Earl, that they refer to them as Count so-and-so, or is it simply as Earl so-and-so?
No, the title of Count was abandoned in England back, I think after the Norman conquest or something like that, in favor of Earl, which is more Germanic, I think. But no, counts are continental and not.
They're not continental.
They're not. They're continental, but they're not British. As far as I know. Yeah.
Well, you raise an excellent point. I think it causes us to want to look into the history of the peerage a little bit. And according to our source, we have a couple of sources working with Wikipedia, of course, but there's also historyfacts.com. And we'll have links to both of these articles in the show notes. According to History Facts, the title of Earl is the oldest in the peerage system. And it dates back to the end of the early medieval period, during the reign of King Canute in the 11th century. And it's the equivalent of Count in other European countries, and as we said, has no feminine form. And the titles that you usually hear people refer to, Duke, Viscount, etc., are associated, but when you get to Earl, it's Earl of something. And today, if you were to fast forward to the 21st century, there are just under 200 Earls in the UK. And the titles are certainly impressive, but it's mostly ceremonial, and they really don't have any kind of formal responsibilities that go along with that title. Which I suppose brings us back to the Sherlock Holmes stories, and as you say, they are careless, not having any responsibilities. So, but they did have influence over certain territories and the kingdom at large. So, let's look at some of the duties that English earls were once expected to manage.
Well, the history, if you go back even a little farther than the 10th century, all of this sort of goes back to the old Anglo-Saxon government. And there was, a role there called the earldom, or which was changed to earl, I think, before Canute. It's like in the 9th century. No, maybe the 10th century. And, the interesting thing about that is they were governors or viceroys, and so they were ruling in the king's name, and they were keeping the peace and dispensing justice and raising armies. But the interesting thing is they received, at the time, the third penny from their jurisdictions. And, what that meant was, they would be dividing the revenue of taxes and so on. And, they therefore got some sort of compensation. But the office of Earl was not hereditary. So while the sons could inherit their father's office, it wasn't automatic, because only the king could make somebody an earl. So, that's there was at one point, some sort of management and justice relating responsibility. And they would collect fines and things like that.
Yes. Yeah, so referring to our friends at History Facts, looks like there's about 190 earls left in the UK currently. And it's a prestigious title, but the role is really just ceremonial with few responsibilities, which explains why they could easily lose children and crowns and things like that. So, but back in the day when the title was created, and let's be clear, the titles of Duke and Marquess were introduced in 1337 and 1386, respectively. So before that, earls were the highest-ranking members of the nobility. And they essentially, as you say, acted as governors, royal governors, and they represented territories. And they oversaw estates and enforced laws and levied taxes. At that third penny, that's kind of where that comes in. But they have their roots, as they began, in a body of government from the Anglo-Saxons called the Witan. It comes from Witangmat, or Meeting of the Wise Men. And for this, it was made up of noble lords. It included the earls and barons, but also abbots and bishops. And they served as advisors to the king. And as you can see, this has direct bearings on the origins of Parliament. And in the 14th century, two distinct houses of Parliament were formed. The House of Commons, which represented towns and counties, and then the House of Lords, which was composed of Lords Spiritual, the religious leaders, and Lords Temporal, which were the nobles and other, the earls and other members of the peerage. And before the Norman conquest, the title of earl was not automatically hereditary. And Richard II kind of changed that. And that was the case up until 1999, when nobles' automatic right to inherit a seat in Parliament was abolished.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and earls pop up in many stories that many of our listeners will be fond of. I mean, it just occurred to me, we have Robert Crawley of Downton Abbey, who was the Earl of Grantham.
There you go.
And then in the world of Woodhouse, P.G. Woodhouse, we have Lord Emsworth in the Blanding stories. He's the Earl of Emsworth. And there's also Uncle Fred in the Woodhouse's stories.
Uncle Fred.
He's the Earl of Ickenham.
That's right. Uncle Fred flits by.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course, there's that famous Woodhouse story, Earls Mean Tears. Oh, no, wait, that's Pearls Mean Tears.
That's Pearls.
Sorry.
But just in looking at some of this reference material, the interesting thing, too, is what you get to wear.
Oh.
and a British earl is entitled to a coronet. How about that for a Sherlockian reference?
Nice.
Bearing 8 strawberry leaves, 4 of which are visible, and 8 silver balls, or pearls around the rim with 5 visible. The actual coronet is rarely, if ever, worn except at the coronation of a new monarch. But in heraldry, the earl may bear his coronet of rank on his coat of arms above the shield. How about that?
Wow.
So that's why some coats of arms have that coronet above, which I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Interesting.
You learn something new every day, every episode of Trifles.
Every episode, yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. Well, extra value is what you get when you buy Coronet. Sorry.
Oh, I like that. That's a great reference. Yeah.
For all of you Rosemary Clooney fans out there.
Extra value is what you get when you buy Coronet.
That's a reference. Holy cow. We are way off track now. We'll have a link to that in the show notes as well, just for those people that are really confused.
I meant to tell you, Dinah Shore called me earlier. She'd like you to get away, see the USA in her Chevrolet.
Oh, goodness. Well, speaking of storytelling and history, let's get into the history of Earls in the canon. The first time we find a mention of an Earl, this is fascinating. I have to say, I haven't read The Sign of Four in quite some time, and in my memory, Mrs. Forrester, who was, I guess, kind of the guardian of Mary Morstan, or was it her aunt? Mrs. Cecil Forrester.
Mrs. Cecil Forrester.
Either way, she's the one who referred Mary Morstan to Sherlock Holmes. I always thought she was simply a name check in the canon. It's just a point of reference. But as we see in Chapter 9, when Watson returns Mary to Mrs. Forrester's after their evening of adventures out in Pondicherry, we actually get a line delivered by Mrs. Forrester. Watson described the entire scenario to her, and we have this little exchange. "It's a romance," cried Mrs. Forrester. "An injured lady, 500,000 in treasure, a black cannibal, and a wooden-legged ruffian. They take the place of the conventional dragon or wicked earl. And 2 knight-errants to the rescue," added Miss Morstan, with a bright glance at me.
Oh, very good. 2 knight-errants. Well, then, of course, in the Mrs. Forrester connection is interesting. And like you, I had no idea she actually said anything in the case. But more prominent is Priory School, of course, which has the Duke of Holderness, who, among his other titles, is is he the Earl of Holderness?
No, he is Baron Beverly, Earl of Carston.
Earl of Carston, of course.
So he was Baron and Earl and Duke.
Yeah, he had lots of titles.
He wasn't Viscount of anything, though, huh?
Oh, I guess not.
It's you get the 3 peerages, get your 4th free. Is that how it works?
Well, if you get the loyalty card,
the royalty card,
the royalty loyalty card. When you're part of the club, if you're there at the coronation of a number of monarchs, you get your card punched, and so you get, Baron, Viscount, the odd OBE gets tossed in, but also in Priory School, one of the other fathers of another student there. The Priory School has not just got this one individual of noble birth, but another. It's the place where nobility like to send their children, direct or indirect, present or missing. And one of the other fathers is also an earl.
Yeah, we had Sir Cathcart Soames and Lord Leverstoke and the Earl of Blackwater. That's interesting.
Grim fellow.
And that actually leads us directly to Lady Eva Brackwell, from Blackwater to Brackwell, the most beautiful debutante of last season, as we're told in The Adventure of Charles Augustus Milverton. She is to be married in a fortnight to the Earl of Dovercourt. And of course, Milverton has some letters which were written to some squire in the country by Lady Eva, and he's threatening to send them to the Earl.
Interesting.
Oh.
And then in the empty house, we have Erling turning upping. And do you remember where we hear about the Earl of Maynooth?
Yes, because this is what actually spurred me on to suggest this as an episode. Recently at the BSI weekend, our friend Matt Hall was given the investiture of the Earl of Maynooth. And I know Matt is from Australia. And lo and behold, the Earl of Maynooth was the governor of one of the Australian colonies. And his second son, the Honorable Ronald Adair, who was, of course, killed in the empty house by Colonel Moran.
Well, as you would expect, being a disposable second son with just an on,
Well, he was the spare.
Yeah, he was the spare.
Not the heir.
Well, and then we meet the Lady Frances Carfax. And is she the daughter of the late Earl of Ruffton?
Yeah, she's the sole survivor of the direct family of the late Earl of Ruffton.
They were all dropping like flies, apparently, the Ruftons.
The estates went, as you may remember, in the male line. She was left with limited means, but some very remarkable old Spanish jewelry of silver and curiously cut diamonds. Good old Lady Frances. Well, as we said at the beginning of the show, this is the episode when we do a drawing for a free back issue of the Baker Street Journal. All you have to do to be eligible is be a paid supporter at any level on Substack or Patreon. So let's bring out the prize wheel and give it a big spin as it goes around and lands on number 77. And that looks like it belongs to Mark Squire. Mark, congratulations. We'll be sending that off to you soon. And for those of you who would like to be like Mark, just go to patreon.com/trifles or trifles.substack.com. So yeah, those are our Earls in the Sherlock Holmes stories. All kind of connected in one way or another with some sort of intrigue.
Interesting. Well, it's good that we have these people who, many of whom have large bank balances and challenges that can be met by Sherlock Holmes.
And none of them are trifles.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Please join us again next week for another installment of Trifles. Show notes are available on SherlockHolmesPodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and be sure to check out our longer show, I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, where we interview notable Sherlockians and share news of the Sherlockian world.
You've taken my breath away, Mr. Holmes.
We are, of course, familiar with the contents of these letters. We shall advise our client to tell her future husband the whole story and trust to his generosity.
And then you evidently do not know the Earl.
Oh, and I forgot to mention our favorite Earl.
Who's our favorite Earl?
Earl Walbridge. Of course, he was
Earl of Walbridge. Yeah,
Earl of Walbridge. Earl F. Walbridge.
Yeah.
He was a Baker Street irregular. And he was known for, well, he was the librarian at the Harvard Club in New York for quite a while. And he wrote a book I think we've referred to before in these parts called Literary Characters Drawn from Life.